Time now for This Is Our House, presented by Samsung, and what a treat to have joining us today from beautiful Woody Point, Newfoundland, a veteran Canadian broadcaster and storyteller, Stephen Brunt, who did the quick in and out into Toronto, saw the match, and got back out east in a hurry. But he was there at the match, and Stephen, that's where I want to start. We're seeing all these incredible photos and videos coming in from across the country. You've covered a lot of sports. You've written about a lot of sports over the course of your career. How have you noticed the uptick in interest for Canadian soccer and what we're seeing from this home World Cup?
Well, I think we're experiencing a sea change here, and it's not out of nothing. Like, this has been building for years and years and years, and it's been there. This kind of sleeping giant that is Canadian soccer and Canadian football, especially on the men's side. And it just, you saw it a little bit with Qatar in the last World Cup, but I think a lot of us kind of felt like this is the moment, right? This is the sea change moment when a whole country kind of wakes up and realizes what we have here, and being on a world stage. Like, I've covered lots of World Cups. I've covered World Cups going back to 94 and USA 94, and covered, other people's World Cups, other people hosting World Cups, other countries, sat in buses full of supporters from other countries, and always thought, what would it be like as a Canadian, to have that rooting interest and have that connection, and how powerful that would be. And we did have a bit of it 4 years ago, but this is the big one. I think we're living through something quite historic right now.
And Stephen, it's impossible to predict the future. And I know that there are a lot of entities within this country that are banking on some momentum from the World Cup. But when you think about those changes, specifically with USA 94, what that did for soccer in the United States afterwards, are you seeing something in the tea leaves that there is something here that will stick, or is it still too early to tell about the after effect of this World Cup?
Yeah, no, look, no, I think it'll stick. I don't see any reason why it won't. We qualified in 22 on merit. I think 4 years from now we'll qualify. I think this is not a one-off. This is not a fluke because we're hosting. You look at where the program is right now. You look at the depth of talent, and the youth of some of the talent. And yeah, I think this is, and again, I hate to say it's the beginning because it's been there. I think sometimes people don't get it sometimes and haven't got it over the last, X number of years, what was kind of lurking and ready to, with all of those people who've grown up watching international soccer, watching Champions League, watching Premier League, watching MLS, watching the Canadian Premier League, watching all of these different, it is part of our culture. It is, this game has been played in Canada as long as it's been played pretty much anywhere. But they just, on the men's side, we needed something, right, to kind of strike the match. And I feel like this is not a one-off. This is not a fluke. This is, kind of excuse is the wrong word, but it's a focal point for an entire country to kind of get behind and say, boy, this is the world's game. This is the biggest stage. This is bigger than the Olympics. This is bigger than any stage in sport. And we're right in the middle of it. And we've got this team that's fun and attractive and fun to watch and successful. Look, it wasn't that long ago we were talking about, losing 8-1 to Honduras. I did that broadcast, or dual internationals who didn't want to play for Canada because they never get to play in a World Cup. You know the names. So to be at this point where people want to play for our team, we play an exciting style. We're in the World Cup. We're going to go to the knockout rounds pretty certainly. And look, I think the sky's the limit now. Honest to God, I think the sky's the limit.
And when you're in these nations covering World Cups that have maybe more history within football, Stephen, and you see how that's starting to translate coming back here. I know yesterday on the way home from the beer store, there's a guy wearing a Canada soccer jersey just like me, and he just says nothing, reaches out, gives me a fist bump as he walks out the door. Like, those little moments of we're starting to build and people are starting to get it. No one's pretending that this is going to catch up to the NHL or the CFL, and if they do, it won't be for eons, it will feel like. But are there reference points as you interact with the Canadian public, as you go to the match, as you did at Toronto Stadium, and see more interest from the outside? Because the diehards have always existed for football in this country.
Oh, yeah. Look, that's where I am right now. I'm in a little town in Newfoundland, and everybody's talking World Cup in the way that they would talk the Habs in the playoffs. I hate making hockey comparisons to everything, because it's,
of course,
it kind of just reduces everything, right? But this is like a hockey. This is one of those hockey moments, or the Jays in the World Series last fall, or the Raptors winning the NBA championship. But it's bigger, right? This is bigger. This game is bigger. This is a global game, and I feel like, yeah, the casuals, sure, yeah, and I know the hardcore people are going to say, hey, we've been here forever. We suffered through the bad stuff, and here we are. But we need all those other people to come in and just, and even if it's just rallying around the flag, even if it's just the kind of the patriotic part, they may not become hardcore football fans, but to have a moment where it's about us and about Canada and about our team, and boy, try and find a better team to rally behind than the one we've got right now. We Canadians love the Olympics. We've rallied behind all kinds of sports we don't know anything about, but this is a sport I think people can embrace, and we like being I think we like being on that big stage, the global stage. I think that's from a Canadian point of view. I know how I felt when they played the anthem at that Bosnia match, and I know how many tears I shed. So I think a lot of Canadians felt that way.
And the 23 through 30, when you add in those fringe players or the taxi reserve squad, might be the most ready of anyone in the country to stand up on that big stage. And it's a good thing too, Stephen, because we're going to finish this with a sporting question, and that's about the final group stage match with the Swiss. I think Jesse Marsch today made some kind of a tongue-in-cheek comment about, after a 6-0 win, everyone's a Canada soccer fan. So I don't know if there's more pressure now all of a sudden. Where are you on that when you consider Canada just needs a draw to win the group and stay in Vancouver? Is it more or less daunting heading into this Switzerland match?
I think coming into it, I would have felt the same way as a lot of people, which was get a result against Bosnia, beat Qatar, and then you're kind of playing with house money. You're going to get through to the knockout stage, whether you win the group or you don't win the group. Let's go and get a win in the World Cup. We haven't had one of those. So 6-0 is great, but any kind of a win. So I kind of feel like we're playing with house money right now. I don't think Jesse Marsch feels that way though, and I don't think the players feel that way. I think getting to the round of 32 was kind of there we go. We've accomplished what we needed to accomplish. I don't think they feel that way, and I think that their goals and their ambitions, are probably way out there right now, and that's the way it should be. And I want them to come into this Switzerland game playing on the front foot, playing their game, playing to win. We don't have to kind of park the bus and say, okay, we're going to just try and kill this game and get a point, because I think that's the personality of this squad and the personality of this coach, the personality of this country, and I think that's what I'm hoping to see in that Switzerland match. They're not. They played. Look at what they did in the Copa. Look at what they did in some of those friendlies. They haven't been intimidated. Let's go. We can play Switzerland. Let's go.
Well, Stephen, if you and I were in the writer's room coming up with a script for this World Cup, I'd say we were doing a pretty good job so far, setting up for this big crescendo to try to clinch the group at home. I know you'll be watching keenly from Newfoundland. Thanks for joining us today. Cheers, Steve. And less than 3 weeks away from the TELUS Canadian Championship quarterfinals, how about a quadruple header on July the 8th? We'll have Forge and CS Saint Laurent at Stade Boreal. Later on that evening, Supra will host Atletico also at Stade Boreal. Then we'll head west, Vancouver FC hosting CF Montreal, and from Swangard Stadium to conclude the day, the Vancouver Whitecaps and Cavalry.